Hey guys, welcome to another episode of All Queued Up. I am your host, Greg Dietz, also known on Twitter as Chub Rock Geek, with my co-host here, Josh Fisher, also known on Twitter as Insobiner76.
How you guys
Uh,
doing?
you can see our Twitter accounts above our heads. If you're new to the show, what this show is about is it is an internet streaming platform review and discussion show. Basically, Josh and I watch an entire series from front to back, two series specifically, and then we just talk about it and review it. We want to thank you guys for your continued support. We've been doing this for a few months now, and the reception that we've gotten is fantastic. We're extremely excited to expand this podcast as much as we can, improve its quality, and see where it can go from there. As a matter of fact, to kind of get into that, we have some news for everybody. Josh here has been working tirelessly on making sure that we have a broader audience for this podcast.
You're like a nap.
Tirelessly, Josh. Tirelessly.
Oh. Yeah, I didn't sleep for weeks.
So we have an email for you to contact us if you want to be a guest on the show, have questions that you want to address to us, or if you want to suggest a show for us to watch. That email is allqueueduppodcast@gmail.com. We also have a bunch of new places in which you can find us aside from our Twitter. Our Twitter, by the way, is @QueuedUpPodcast. But if you want to go to our Facebook page, it's just search for All Queued Up Podcast. We have a WordPress site, which is allqueueduppodcast@wordpress.com. And if you search for our podcast, All Queued Up, you can find us on SoundCloud, Podbean, Google Play, Stitcher, and iTunes. Basically, you'll find us wherever you want to find your podcast at, or wherever you listen to your podcast. However that's worded, I will refine it as we continue this podcast. Briefly, this show, we do watch a lot of adult shows on Netflix, and sometimes those shows have dark themes, have dark messages that maybe you aren't privy to listen to. So, word to the wise, both episodes of the show that we talk about tonight do have things in it that maybe children shouldn't listen to. Maybe it's something that you're not interested in. Do feel free to skip forward. But that being said, we also talk about spoilers. As I said in the beginning of the show, we watch these seasons from front to back. So, spoilers ahoy.
We
This week,
discuss it all pretty heavily.
we leave nothing out. This week we are discussing two shows, Dark and Wormwood. We are going to start with Wormwood. I almost did it backwards, Josh, even though we discussed it before recording. So I'm going to hit the timer for Wormwood. We're not going to have a ton to say about it. It's 6 episodes long, but as soon as I hit the timer, we will begin our discussion. So Wormwood is half documentary, actually probably I'd say 60% to 50 or to 70% documentary, and the rest is biopic.
Yeah, I believe they classify it as a docudrama series in order to be eligible for awards, for Academy Awards, is the reason why they did it that way.
Okay. That makes sense. The gist of the show is back in 1953? 52?
Yes, 53.
53. There was a death in which caused a lot of controversy. It forced a family to kind of do stuff outside of what they were normally doing in regards to looking up stuff about the CIA. Basically, to try to sum it up, in 1953, a man jumped out of a window at a hotel, or at least it seemed that way. It turns out that this had connections to the CIA doing experiments with LSD. In 1975, it got even worse, and this is around the time that Nixon, I think it was after Nixon had already resigned because of Watergate. People had a strong distrust with the government in the first place, and upon discovering and hearing that the CIA might have had secret experiments with LSD and it caused the death of a man in 1953, this was even worse for society. But for one person, Eric Olson, almost forgot the family's last name, his entire life was based around solving the death of his father. Because at the time, all the report said was jumped or fell out of a window. But this didn't make any sense to him. And upon further investigation on his part and other people around him, it turned out that this seemed more like a murder. So the whole show kind of runs through that. It runs the whole gamut of everything that might have happened, did happen, all the way up until today, which still has no definitive answer, or at least not one that's public. For me, the show is very interesting in the way that it's shot, because the documentary part is very documentary. It's a lot of interviews and stock footage and stuff in that regard. But the stuff involving the act, like the recreation, the biopic or drama part, holy crap! If you were to just take that and compile it into one movie, God, that thing would be beautiful to watch. Josh, what are your thoughts on it?
Really enjoyed the documentary part. I felt that having, and like you said, the reenactment scenes that they do from episode to episode could have been a movie on its own. And I actually kind of prefer, I think I would prefer had it been a movie and a documentary to accompany
Wholeheartedly
meshed
agree.
together. While I enjoyed, they had stellar actors for the reenactments.
Peter Skarsgård is.
I mean, he is amazing. You know, part of her in Deadwood. You know, she was also excellent. Tim Blake Nelson, great people, but it's also a reenactment.
It all feels like it's undershadowed.
It felt like such people doing this and just have scenes intercut in with this fascinating documentary. As a standalone movie, I think it would have been incredible.
Yeah, if they had,
just I was captivated, but I found myself, sadly, as beautifully shot as this was, and as much as I liked some of these actors that were in it, I found myself every time wanting to get back to the documentary part and wanting to skip through the reenactment, even though they are great. It just for the first
3 episodes, it felt like the episodes were just going to end. Like the last 10 to 15 minutes were going to be the acted bits, and the first part was going to be documentary. But by the time you get to episode 4, 5, and 6, it's all intertwined, and it starts to kind of. And I felt like this was a artistic choice to kind of make you, as the viewer, feel just as confused and anxiety as everyone else in the story was.
I have to agree with that.
But in that regard, I felt like the story would have been a bit more. Hold on. I felt like the story would have been a bit more coherent had it been like you and I both agree, movie followed by a 5-part documentary. I just felt like that would have been a lot cooler. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed what I watched. But yeah, I definitely felt like that artistic choice didn't fall in line with what I would have made, in a sense. I mean, I respect the hell out of the artistic choice. Yeah. I really do. Because, like you and I both said, like, stellar acting, stellar, there are shots that are so beautiful and well choreographed that if you were to just watch those parts by themselves without any context, it just looks not like an art house film, but damn close. Um, like, spoiler alert again, there's a whole scene where the man who was with Olson, what the hell is his first name? Frank.
Mm-hmm.
In his hotel room. Robert.
Oh.
What the hell was his last name?
God. Robert Lashbrook.
Lashbrook, thank you.
He was
Robert
a chemist.
Lashbrook. Yes, it's CIA chemist. But Robert Lashbrook is in the bathroom. This is like episode 5. This is before the big reveal in the last episode, and yada yada yada. But he's sitting in the bathroom by himself. He knows what's about to happen, and the camera is just very, very subtly, slowly zooming in on Lashbrook, sitting on the toilet, not doing anything, just sitting there with a cigarette. And all of a sudden, the door starts to shake, and you hear Bob, you gonna let me in, Bob. And he's just sitting there staring at the door. You don't see the door, you just hear it. It's just him stoically sitting on the toilet, and you hear nothing. Then you hear glass break, and then you hear a knock on the door. And then he gets up. There's a shot across the room where you see the window with the curtain in the background waving. He gets up, he goes over to the phone, the camera's static, picks it up, says, "It's done," and then hangs up the phone. That entire sequence is gorgeous in my opinion. That kind of stuff just tickles my fancy. But those shots feel so undercut when all of a sudden it just cuts to people being interviewed again.
yeah, I think that it really
and vice versa,
hurts.
really, vice versa.
Yeah, I think it really hurt itself by doing that. Is like you said, we respect the hell out of making that decision. But I think if you would, and I see what they're going for. You know, they wanted to be able to be eligible for, which is part of the influence of this. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you've got a fascinating documentary here that you could do in several parts on its own, and you've got a fascinating movie that you craft. Put them out as companion pieces to each other instead of like this, and I think it would perform better, at least for me personally. But yeah, some of those shots were amazing. That is a shot, you know, the shots where Frank is LSD and he's tripping his nads off. You know, there's multiple sequences where it shows that and how he's just freaking out. Those are very interestingly shot in the way that, you know, all the sounds are distorted and coming off from a distance and echoing in his vision, and he's just starting to see things, and some things are blurred and some things are just in your face, sharp, and seeing things that aren't there. Those things are great. And, you know, they really captured the whole look and feel of things in the 50s very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And kind of diffused it a little bit to give it that feel. And that was very well done. It's just, like you said, it takes you at a moment when you're readjusting from, okay, now I'm out of the reenactment, now I'm back into the interviews, and you get hit with a new piece of information, and then you get, okay, now back to the reenactment, showing what they theorize, and all the reenactment, none of this can be, you know, 95% of it is what they can piece together from the information that was made available to them. The only thing that are really going to be concrete absolute is pretty much he's leaving his family there for the last time. You know, just that one little snippet. Everything else is like, well, we think this is what's happened based on these reports. So,
it's just fascinating to me that the whole thing is really good. It just feels like the two parts that are really good are oil and water. You know, I love oil and I love water, man, they don't mix. They just don't. And I felt like that through the entire thing. I was just like, every time they would cut between the two things, that was the other problem that I had. I don't know if you had this too, and not with like the stock footage, but like the quality of the interview to the quality of the filmmaking was different. To the extent that when like they would come out of one or the other, it was a little jarring.
Yeah.
So
like
I think that like,
when it transitioned, it was just like pulling me out for a second.
exactly, that was 100%. I as for the whole story, the story that was being told, I was more fascinated by Eric's story, by Eric's experience through life with this having happened to him, than I was about the CIA's deceitfulness. Than I was about how the CIA handled things in the past and to the present, where to the extent where the American populace cannot trust the CIA, should not trust the CIA. That stuff was almost less, that was way less interesting to me than just Eric's journey through this terrible, terrible thing that happened to him. His entire life was ruined by the death of his father, and when I say ruined, I mean like from the age of 10 to now. And he was 10 in 1953, so he's 63 now? No, 73. 73.
75.
He's at 6...
74, 75 years old at this point, depending on his birth year.
They said it in the movie, but I don't remember exactly. But his almost his entire adult life has been spent dealing with trying to figure out what happened to his dad, not being able to let go. They interview a couple psychiatrists, and they do this thing with him called the collage method.
Yeah, he was actually in that or studying that for a thesis for his master's or something like that, and apparently was really big in the field and had some groundbreaking and a promising career in that because of his obsession wanting to find out what happened.
Exactly, and that's, to me, that was the most fascinating part because it's both so sad and so eye-opening in how a simple event can transpire someone's life to the extent that it did to Eric's. I felt for Eric deeply. I still do. But I was also just completely infatuated by how he dealt with the information that he was given, how he dealt with, to an extent, combating the CIA, and
I mean, I'd love to know more about one is going to win.
No. Eric, the sad realization at the end of the movie, at the end of the series, Eric will take this to his grave. He will have left this earth before finding out the absolute truth. And that, to me, is the biggest evil of the CIA.
And the thing is that one journalist, Seymour, his name escapes me, and I don't have it up in front of me because I'm not seeing it because it's showing a cast, but not the actual people. Hirsch. Seymour Hirsch.
Yeah, Seymour Hirsch. And Seymour Hirsch has done a lot of true crime stories, too.
Apparently, Hirsch has all of the information and knows exactly what happened. But because of his source is, and the ramifications it would have on his source, he cannot make that information known because it would be so damaging to others. And, of course, Eric's like, I don't care, I need to know. But here's the thing, if this is where an obsession, to me, becomes a problem. Yes, you want to know the truth, but at the same time, if you're causing harm to others, you need to realize, man, it's time to let it go. How far have you been down this rabbit hole now? And now you're at the point where it sounds like, based on the way Hirsch was talking, this could get somebody in lots of trouble, as in not just prison time. He said basically create another Snowden, but
Yeah,
this is the
yeah.
CIA. They have manuals for assassination, as you see in the documentary. This could probably get somebody killed.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, for absolutely.
Um,
And it also like Hirsch is not wrong. He says very succinctly, Eric's never going to be able to just let this go.
mm-mm.
He can't. Even though that's what he should do, he can't. And he can't because it's become an obsession. It's become such an integral part to his existence that to let this go would be like chopping off his right arm. So, 15 minutes is up, so we're going to give our recommendations. I'm going to go first, so that way you can give yours on Dark. I recommend this show, but definitely go into it knowing that you are getting two individual things. You're getting a documentary plus a biopic or a biodrama, however you want to put that. And both are excellent in their own right, but again, oil and water. So go into it knowing that, expecting that, and you'll have a good time watching it. And when I say good time, I mean like you'll enjoy it. But again, I do recommend it. I recommend it for two reasons. First reason is that it is a little eye-opening. There was some stuff that I learned about the CIA that I didn't know. And the second reason is you'll actually get a different story, a different kind of outlook on this whole story if you already know it. My father knew about the story. He had heard about it his entire life because he was born in 1954. So, everything involving this story has been in his existence. And it's like he was a hippie in the 70s, so of course he knows about this story. So because of that, my dad didn't know Eric's story exactly. So hearing Eric's story from Eric's mouth is incredibly fascinating and will teach you a little bit more about this whole story that you may not have known. So I give it a good. Oh my gosh! Suddenly, everything that I ate earlier decided to have a big old burp. I give it a strong recommendation, but not too strong. Like, we got to figure out a better recommendation file here. I don't know. Like I said, I recommend it. I guess that's as far as I'll go. Josh, go ahead and give your recommendation.
I'll give it a soft recommend. Very soft. The only reason I would recommend it for somebody to watch it beginning to end if they were a really big fan of documentaries. Because I don't think, because given the style that it is shot in, how it is interconnected with the biodrama weaved into the documentary, going from one to another is really jarring and takes you out of it. And honestly, several times, even though, as I said, the reenactment scenes are beautifully shot and beautifully crafted, I found myself, especially in episodes 5 and 6, growing so tired of them, I wanted to fast forward through them. I didn't. I watched them all, and I feel that the exact same story would have been told in just a documentary, and that would have served better. So it's a recommend because the story is good, but it's a very soft recommend. It was very close to being a not recommend, but it's done well enough to where it needs. I appreciate the efforts, but
Question: Would you have preferred if they, and we've already agreed that you'd have preferred documentary follow with a movie. Would you prefer the movie then the documentary, or the documentary then the movie?
I think I would have preferred documentary than the movie.
Okay.
Because having that context would be.
I agree with that.
Because there are some films
context is everything. Yeah.
Some films are great, not knowing anything about them, enjoying them, going in blind. But when it's something that has historical precedent, stories that are known, I think documentary followed by the film would be best served to have that
I wonder if it would have
context.
been. I wonder how fascinating it would have been if they could have done this instead, where it was 4 episodes documentary. The 5th episode is the story, is like the biopic part,
And then a
and then
conclusion.
conclusion documentary. That would have been rad, man.
I think that would have worked better, and I am totally fine with that. Yeah, yeah, that would work. That would work for me.
Yeah.
And,
All right. Well. I'm gonna. Yeah. I think just like because that's what I was trying to do is middle of the road recommendation. Like you gave it a little bit less than I did, but like I wasn't trying to do strong for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit on the weak side. But
Yeah.
let me.
It's also only 6 episodes. It's not very long.
Yeah, it's only going to take up, at most 6 hours of your time.
Right.
Because they're under an hour each.
Yeah.
Okay, give
All right.
me just a moment here.
Okay.
All right, now, dark.
Hey guys, so you might notice something a little different here. We're gonna have to go audio for a while, and this isn't due to anybody's fault entirely. I say entirely like it kinda is, but it's not. Neither Josh or I have the capability at the moment to do video podcasting, but we still have the capability of doing audio podcasting. So the first half of the show is going to sound weird because we're just basically using the video footage that we recorded and turning it into audio. As for talking about Dark, this is actually our 4th time talking about Dark because we couldn't figure out why the video was messing up so much. So
Basically, my PC isn't powerful enough to handle the video and recording process, but we can do the audio. So we decided, hey, we want to focus on bringing you good quality audio content. And that's where we're going to focus. And once we can deliver the video again, we will.
yes. But guys, we also wanted to briefly say something that we didn't say in the beginning of the show. We have a Discord. So if all of these other options that we've given you to communicate with us, talk to us, it doesn't quite work, come to our Discord. Let us know in the public chat there. Like it's just great to hear from you guys. So without any further ado, let's talk about Dark a 4th time, which should be an interesting conversation because we've talked about it enough already.
But it's not bad.
That's the positive thing. That's the positive takeaway. It's a good enough show where it's not a bother to really talk about it a 4th time. So
Yeah, the only bother is the frustration of having to record for a 4th time.
Yeah. But here are the perils of doing podcasting in general. So, or just anything on the internet really that deserves production. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the timer and we will begin. I will go with my spiel I have normally about the playing games and whatnot, Josh. So here we go.
All right. Strap in, folks.
So when I started watching the show, I had Dark on my laptop and I was playing Destiny 2. And I noticed that when I started glancing at the show, everyone's talking in English, but the mouths aren't syncing up. So I thought, oh no, like maybe my laptop messed up, maybe Netflix messed up. So I restarted the app, didn't work. I paused and played and paused and did whatever I could, nothing worked. And it wasn't until that like I looked at their mouths and then saw like a newspaper or something, and I was like, oh, the show is in German. Got it. So my recommendation right off the bat, before we even get into recommendations, is don't watch this show dubbed. The second reason to not watch it dubbed is I don't feel the audio quality is up to snuff. I'm staring at my camera like I'm talking to a camera. This is going to be rough to get used to.
It wasn't that the audio quality was terrible. It just, when you dub and produce in a sound booth, you don't have that ambient sound matching the backgrounds. Like if you have characters talking in a forest, you see them walking through a forest, but it sounds like they're just talking in like a telephone booth to each other. So
Exactly. Like there's a scene where two of the characters are discussing something with one another, and the girl sounds like she is way too clear and way too audible, even in that room, in the context of what they're doing. And he sounds like his audio is being recorded over a phone. So there's moments like that that really take you out. Like, you know, this dubbing works in anime because you have a lot of people who are great anime or great voice actors.
Oh, absolutely.
Plus, the editors can actually adjust and edit mouth movements nowadays, so that way if they want something to be said a little bit differently that doesn't seem weird or bizarre, it's not like, let's change how you're saying that just right so it matches the mouth movement perfectly, which is what this show tried to do. And so, I guess at best, to say this at best, is at moments, it can come across as like old school bad anime dubbing. Which has its charm, I guess, but I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it, is my point.
Yeah, absolutely watch it in its native German. You have the weight of the emotion from the characters in their voice, the impact. It's just a better overall experience to read the English subtitles. But this is definitely a show that you can't play video games and casually watch. You've got to pay attention.
Right, and on that note, we will get into why that is the case. So the general gist of the show is that in 2019, a young boy by the name of Mikkel.
Yes.
Mikkel or Mikkel. It's
Mikkel Nielsen.
Yeah, the way the Germans pronounce it versus the English voice actors was different. So Josh and I have a hard time.
Yeah, they stress it as Mikkel, but you know it's spelled Mikkel. Mikkel.
Right. He goes missing at the end of, like, I think the first episode. By the way, spoilers. Straight up, I forgot to mention this. We are getting heavy into spoilers on this show. So, honestly, if you have not watched it, come back to the podcast after you do. That being said, Mikkel goes missing, and the town kind of goes into a frenzy trying to find him.
Because he is the second child to go missing in a 2-week span.
Right. So, in the process of like the town going into a frenzy, because now they have 2 missing kids, a time tunnel is discovered. This is not time travel, as we all know it. It's not George Carlin showing up in a phone booth. This is not David Tennant showing up in a police box, or Doc Brown showing up in a DeLorean. There are interconnected tunnels underneath the town that lead to 1986 and 1953. Now, the reason that this is the case is because the show doesn't do the whole typical, like, you know, Doctor Who will sit there and say, oh, it's a timey-wimey, wobbly, yada, 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 trying to emphasize that, like, time is not a straight line. Well, this show goes, yeah, time's not a straight line, but it's all connected. It's all happening at the same time. Which causes for some very strong confusion throughout the series. For me, that was something that I thought was very interesting. In the moment that, like, I understood that there was this interesting new form of time travel that I really hadn't seen in other media. But what the mind-blowing moment for me was when Johan, which is a friend of Mikkel's brother, goes back. Jonas. I thought it was Johan. Sorry, Jonas. He goes to 1986 trying to find Mikkel, and the second that he does find him, what you find out later, it's himself from the future. But a mysterious man that shows up constantly throughout the series shows up and is like, you cannot take him back to 2019. If you do, you undo your existence because that's your father. That was the moment where I was just like, like I couldn't think, just because my brain just didn't want to handle that information. And that's what I think is another brilliant thing about the show, is it does a lot of stuff where you have to stop for a second.
Yeah, it really does. I binged this over the span of, 2 evenings, Monday evening and Tuesday afternoon. And Misty, when she got off work that night, I was like, you've got to start watching this because it is that damned good. And at the end of every episode, she was, you know how Netflix has the built-in next episode starts in 5, 4, 3, 2. She's like, wait, stop, I need a minute. What the fuck? You know, is basically what she's asking at the end of every episode. But it really is thought-provoking. It is very well presented. I love the whole aspect of, okay, these 3 time points are interconnected. You're dealing with this massive cast of ensemble characters, and mainly with 4 families that are intertwined over 3 generations spanning this 66-year time period. But the whole premise is, while, say, Jonas, for example, he is pretty much one of the absolute main focal characters. While he is existing in 2019, his future self is also there, traveling back and forth from 2019, 1986. But his future self knows and remembers everything that happened to his 2019 self. And, say, 1986, Mikkel, his future self, existing in the same town and just a few houses apart as his younger counterpart before he goes missing in 2019. That's a mind trip. It is crazy. Just fascinating the way it's presented.
Yeah, I was like, what makes it so much more like confusing and interesting and fascinating is like we were talking about how you are given this information slowly throughout the whole 10 episodes. Nothing is just handed to you on a silver plate. You know, I said in previous recordings that this show starts off like Broadchurch and goes right into Lost. And to me, I adore that. I absolutely adore that. I think that was such an interesting way to tell a story. I mean, it's not that we haven't seen that before. It's not like we haven't seen a show do a do a mystery sort of thing and slowly give us details. I mean, for Christ's sake, the movie Clue did that back in, the 80s or whatever, or 90s. When did that movie come out?
84, 85, somewhere in there, okay. I think. Not 100% sure.
Jesus. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is that movie does what this show does in terms of slowly giving you information, but the way that the show gives you information is very, very meticulous and methodical. It gives you what you need at the moment. We talked about this earlier too, that like any questions that you have are answered in the next episode or the following episode after that. You aren't left at the end of the season with a question that was presented in episode 1 or 2 that isn't if it's a small question. Like one of my questions early on was like, okay, so we heard that there's the past, present, future that are interconnected. And we knew of 2000, well, first off, I didn't realize it was 2019, but we heard of 2019 and we heard of 1984. Or, I'm sorry, 1986. And I went, okay, so 1986 is the past and 2019 is the present, so we're going to clearly go into the future. This is rad. And it totally took a left turn for me and went to 1953, which was a very pleasant surprise because I was not expecting it. But that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, my question was like, oh, are they going to the past or are they going to the present? And it was answered shortly after I asked it. And there are plenty of questions that basically do that.
Yeah, when you see a new character pop up and you're wondering, who in the world is that? And then, usually the next episode that is answered. But of course, who is presented as, if there has to be a protagonist or an antagonist, he is initially very mysterious, the character of Noah, and some characters allude to him as an antagonist, but he doesn't see himself as that way. We have no idea if he is an evil character or not at the end of the season. We don't know much about him, but he says something very interesting that I really loved, and it was in one of the final 2 episodes. I'm not sure if it was episode 9 or episode 10, but he is telling a young character who was friends with Jonas Bartosz. He says, there are 2 factions that are fighting for the control of time travel. One is the side of light, one is the side of shadow. Your grandmother fights for the side of shadow. We fight for the side of the light. There are many things that we do that appear to be inhumane, but there are no pure humans. And the reason we're doing these things is so that everything unfolds exactly as it needs to in order to save basically all of existence, is what he is alluding to. And you don't know if he is being truthful or not. And those are the kind of questions that it raises that are so fun. Another one.
And that's one of those questions that I guess I'm more referring to that is
left open-ended, unanswered.
Yeah, intentionally so. More so I'm trying to think of some questions that I asked that were answered very quickly, because that's the thing, like that's all I'm trying to get at with this show, is that the show doesn't try to be smarter than you, or at least it doesn't feel like it tries to be smarter than you. It feels like it's just trying to tell you a story in a very specific way, and anytime that you feel like you figured something out, it goes, you kind of got there, but here's what really is, and you're just like, oh god, that's cool, okay, thank you. You never feel, at least for me, I never felt like it was
trying to be condescending or anything.
Exactly. That's the feeling that I'm trying to get there, Josh. Thank you.
You're welcome. I also love the philosophical aspect of this show.
Yes, thank you.
One of the main focal characters is Mikkel's dad, Ulrich. And just to bring this up, just about every single character on this show is flawed as a human being. These are believable characters from a small community where everyone knows each other, and nobody is perfect, and everybody seems to have a little bit of things that they don't want other people knowing. They've got a little bit of a dark side to them, some of them. And Ulrich, he is just desperate to find his son. And he learns about these passages in time. And he actually is pursuing who he believes to be the kidnapper of his son and his younger brother, respectively, because 33 years prior, his younger brother went amiss. But what Ulrich does when he is following this person, he ends up in 1953 instead of 86, and finds this individual as a young child, approximately 8 years old. They didn't say how old he was. I think it's right around 8, because I think he was 74, so 66 years. Roughly in that ballpark.
Yeah, that's the thing the show does. That's the thing the show does that I think is really clever. Is it'll give you the age of one of them in a timeline.
Yeah.
So you basically have to do the math.
Yeah, but it kind of, that old philosophical question that you always get in a philosophy class. What would happen if you traveled back in time and, say, killed Hitler? Would you prevent the Holocaust? Would you prevent World War II? This is done on a smaller scale. What would you do if you could kill who you thought was responsible for terrible offenses later in their adult life? If you killed them as a child, would it change things? He believed that it would, but yet by attacking, and he gets on top of this little boy and is bashing this kid's head in with a big frickin' rock. and permanently disfigures and scars the boy for life. However, it didn't kill him, and it didn't change anything, and it should have. So now it presents the question, well, did you create what you set out to destroy as a result of your actions? And that's the part of this show, that philosophical aspect, that I love so much about this show.
Yeah, that is exactly like what I thoroughly enjoy. Is that's a philosophical question the show never answers, as it never should. It should never ever answer that question, because that's entirely up to you as the viewer.
Exactly.
Briefly, because how much time do we have left? I went away from the timer for like a second. We have
roughly
7
about
minutes.
20 minutes in. So.
Oh yeah. I have a timer set up, Josh. Thank you very much. I'm joking. I'm just fucking with you. The thing I want to talk about briefly is how the sound design and the visual nature of this show are absolutely incredibly amazing. So we briefly mentioned how, like, listening to this with the dubbed audio makes the in-show audio sound weird, or it doesn't match up. That's because the way that the sound mixing happens in the show is so beautiful and so perfect that you always feel like everything that's happening has, like, what intensity level it needs. You, like, not every movie, not every show does this, where they go, well, we really want you to feel like things are in dire straits right now, so the music changes to feel that way. Or there's stress amongst characters. A lot of shows do this, and that is fine, but, you know, like, the way that this show does it is really, really good. That's all I'm trying to get at. I'm stuttering over here, because I'm like, how do I say this in the way that I want to? That also being said, the visual nature of this show is so beautifully shot. I said numerous times, like, it brought up memories of, like, watching Hitchcock movies, or watching, what's his name? Kubrick. Like, the way the cinematography is in this show. There's a moment we talked about earlier of the dad of Mikkel bashing the little boy's head in 1953. There's this beautiful shot. It's going to sound a little weird that I'm saying beautiful, but there's a beautiful shot where the boy is in the cellar, or in the
bunker.
The bunker, whatever it happens to be. And he closes the door to it, and he sits there and stares at it because he wants to make sure the kid is dead. And he's sitting there distraught, hopeful that he's changed the future, but knowing what he did is terrible, while his hands are bloodied. And there's just, like, this really melancholy type of score while it slow zooms on his face. Oh, it's just perfect. It's just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it is emotionally powerful. The score of this series, I mean, and the sound design is just, with those visuals, it is one of the best things I've seen in a while. It's that well done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the other shots, it was like early on, I want to say first or second episode, maybe even third, but whenever somebody, there's a cave that exists in all 3 timelines, where it's basically the cave where you go to find the tunnels that lead to the different timelines. But when people stare at the outside of the cave, the character themselves gets an ominous feeling, so the music gets ominous, and then they do this cool camera trick that like Hitchcock did. I think you can see it in North by Northwest primarily, but it's pulling back on a camera while you're zooming in. So like while focusing on a face or a major thing, the camera is zooming in on that, but because it's being pulled back, like, there's this really neat effect on the sides of the picture that just give it a creepy feeling.
Like
and
the
they
trees growing smaller in the background, but yet the face, you're zooming in on it as you're pulling back, yeah.
The show does that with this cave. Like, at least twice. And the second I noticed that, I was just like, yeah, so good. I was so happy to see it. But even on that note, like, every type of camera trick that needed to happen was a camera trick. There's like maybe 2 moments in the show where they have to use CGI, but like it's like CGI is not prominent in the show. Everything is practical, including the camera effects, the costumes. Like, one of the cool things about the show, because it takes place in Germany, is seeing the police officers' outfits in 1953, less than a decade after Germany lost World War II. Like, it's so rad to see that stuff, and as far as I know, as far as I've read, they've kept that shit authentic. So, yeah, like there's just so much to adore and love about this show. There truly, truly is.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about season 2.
Yeah, same here. Like, the end of the show, if you made it this far into the podcast, then you probably made it this far into the show. The end of the show has Jonas.
Yes.
Traveling through another time tunnel, essentially, and coming into, the future, essentially.
We assume, based on the way the travel works, is 33 years. We're going to assume that it's 33 years from 2019, which would make it 2052. We don't know that, but that makes the most logical sense.
I'm pretty, I doubt it's any other time than 1952, unless it's 66 years in the future.
Yeah, that's a possibility as well.
Because then they have more room to play with stuff. But that's a question that we don't have an answer to, because that's led to, you being excited for season 2. We don't have answers about Noah. We don't have answers about, what was the old lady's name?
Claudia.
We don't have answers about her. There was like a number rhythm thing that happened in the show that characters talked about that we still don't have answers to. So there's stuff that needs to be answered or needs to be addressed, and we're delighted here at All Queued Up to know they're making a season 2.
Yeah, if you can't tell, we highly recommend this show.
I was just about to say, our timer is up, so Josh, go ahead and give your recommendation.
Absolutely wonderfully done, wonderfully visualized, wonderfully conceptualized, wonderfully scored, masterfully told. It is a brilliant show. I highly recommend it if you are a fan of mysteries, suspense, thrillers, time travel, those types of devices. Also, if you like flawed characters, it is just really, really well done. I can't recommend it enough. I would rate it on a number scale. I would give it a 9.5 out of 10.
Hot damn. I think I mirror everything that Josh said. It's easily one of the best shows I've seen on Netflix. Between the score, the cinematography, the acting, the story that's being told, the way that it's told, it's just a gorgeous show around like full circle, and I cannot recommend it enough. I do heed warning, like my laptop automatically did dubbing, so beware of that and try to change it to the German with subtitles. Don't do other things while watching it. Pay as close attention as you can, because you'll get even further confused. That being said, watch it. Absolutely go to Netflix, watch it. It's only 10 episodes and it's worth every minute. But guys, that's going to be it for the show. This has been a stressful week for both Josh and I. More so Josh than me, because he has all the tech on his end. But we want to make this show as entertaining as possible and not half-ass it. So, as of right now, we are unable to do video. we're gonna if you're coming from YouTube and you've seen the short video that we are going to record to let people know what's going on, thank you for being here. That means you found us on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, Twitter being Queued Up Podcast. You've gone to our WordPress site, allqueueduppodcast.wordpress.com. You found us on SoundCloud, Podbean, Google Play, Stitcher, or iTunes. Again, like I said at the top of the show, guys, we are on numerous platforms now. So please give us a rating while you're there. Let us know what you think. If you want to send us a private message via Twitter, Facebook, or email.
Or Discord.
Thank you. Jeez, I forgot about Discord. Well, we'll put a link in Discord in somewhere. Maybe on our Twitter. I don't know. Maybe on our Facebook as well.
Yeah.
The point is there's a lot of places to reach us. And what we want you guys to do is give us feedback. Let us know what we can do differently. This is a passion project for Josh and I. We both love watching Netflix, and with stuff going on in our lives, there was just not a lot of opportunity to watch certain shows. Or one of the big reasons that we wanted to start the show was because there are shows that we just want to watch. And maybe we just, needed the motivation to do it. Like Dark, we would have never found Dark. I would have never watched Dark outside of doing this podcast.
I can't honestly say if I would have or not, but, I'm glad that it has come around. Because it is absolutely one of the best things I've watched in a while.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's fucking fantastic. But yeah, this is also, guys, you can also suggest shows to watch. You can, like if you want to be a guest on the show, let us know, and we can accommodate that.
Yeah, we're doing everything that we can to improve and deliver better content to you. So we're focusing on getting that audio done well. And once we're able to do the video again, we'll do that as well. But please, interact with us. Hit us up. Let us know what you think. Give us those suggestions.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, next episode, we are going to be doing Into the Fucking World, which is a dark comedy of sorts. It's very short. It's I think 10 episodes, and each episode is 20 minutes long, so that's a very quick watch.
Yeah, 8 episodes maybe, even. I'm not sure. But I know it's under a half an hour for each one, so...
Yeah. They basically built the show around having, commercial breaks, if it was ever on TV.
Oh, okay.
But the other show we're going to watch, which is a bigger undertaking, is Black Mirror Season 4. Now, because Black Mirror is an anthology series, it's 6 episodes, but each episode is its own story. We are going to give each episode 10 minutes. Which means it'll be the episode will be over an hour, essentially. We're going to give 10 minutes to Into the Fucking World, and then 10 minutes to each episode of Black Mirror. So, strap in for that one, folks. That one's going to be a little bit longer, but it'll be worth it because it'll be fun to kind of get through that and talk about each thing. But that being said, guys, go watch those shows so you can keep up with us. Josh, real quickly, where can they find you online?
Well, they can locate me on the Twitter at nsabanur1976 and also at twitch.tv/nsabanur76, and they can come in and hang out as I stream some miniature painting or model building or some gaming.
Okay, and you can find me at ChubRockGeek on Twitter. That's where I post primarily. Every Sunday, I do a video game podcast with Anthony, where we just discuss video game news throughout the week. We do a pre- and post show, so definitely come for the recording of that, which is at twitch.tv/missionstartp. But also on twitch.tv/missionstarp, you can also find Anthony and I's new show called What's on Tap, where Anthony basically goes through his entire Steam library of games he has not yet played, while I sit there and crack jokes and talk to the chat. We just did an episode Thursday, which was on, what's the name of that game? Dead Cells, which is, it actually hasn't released yet. He got an early access copy, so that was rad. That game was awesome.
It looked fun. It looked like it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really cool. But if that's your cup of tea, if video games are your thing, come check out Mission Start. It's twitch.tv/Mission Start P. Again, guys, we are making this show as best we can, and we appreciate you for your continued support, especially at these times right now, where this podcast is not going to have a video version. It's just not. We won't have video for a while, I think. No, I don't know how long. We'll see how long it goes, but for a hot minute, we won't have video. So again, thank you for your support, guys, and we will see you next time with Black Mirror Season 4 and End of the Fucking World.
Take care, everybody.